Hi. Team patterns. I noticed there's a lot of team management, self-managing team talk.
Team. Team, 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 team. I even love saying the word team. You probably think that's a picture of my family. It's the A-team.
There's a lot of we need to communicate, we don't intervene, we don't micromanage, we don't do that. And then the other side of that is, yeah, we're in a team and we're self-managing and we're reporting to each other and we communicating quite well and we doing our things. But what happens in that team, right? There are patterns and anti-patterns. What I've been doing is writing a list of patterns and anti-patterns that I've experienced. Now, what I'm going to do now is I've extracted that out of a bigger piece of text and I brought it across into Google Docs with all the headlines of the ones that I want to talk about today. And we'll go through that next. Team patterns. Right. Team patterns. Here are some team patterns. The expert pattern. Each developer is an expert and regarded as such. The experts are respected and their recommendations in their area are trusted. This is something that we don't have a lot of. What we have are loads of teams with average developers who we would question, or can you, maybe I can do that better, maybe they can do that better. Why is he doing that? He's not so good at that. And so we have sort of mediocre, average developers, and I know we all think that we're better than we are, but we have, and this is, it's just the law of averages would say that the majority of us are pretty average, and that we do not have experts in certain areas. But of course, it would be best if we do have that in a team, that we can rely on somebody with a great number of UI experience. And where teams are better, in my experience, are when there are experts in a particular area, right? The more experts they are in a nice sort of niche area of that development, and there's trust for that expert, I find that the team does better, right? So that's something we should strive for. Finding expert pattern. So if you don't have experts in all these different areas, somebody's going to say, well, I really prefer front end. I really prefer back end. And in that case, what you can do is randomly rotate your experts to other expert roles. I'm using the word expert to suggest a developer who is slightly better, right, than you or someone else in the team at a particular thing. We call them the expert, right? So that's how it reads. Evaluate the designs and output to gauge their level of expertise. Try to settle people into roles, but also have shared expertise sessions. So it's very important to have experts in these different areas. We need to find the expert, right? So in our team, they're part of the team. Which one's better at UI? Nobody wants to touch UI. Yeah, but okay, we need somebody on UI. What can we do? Let's rotate. Let's give you a chance, and let's see who's better at different roles, and let's see who really fits within these expert positions. Expert investment. Well, we can always, if we can't find someone, we can always put a person on a training schedule, right, to grow their expertise. And so that is something we can do. We can actively mentor. We can send them on a training course. Or we can hire an expert consultant. So we can bring somebody in and say, look, now we're going to hire somebody. It could be part-time. It could be permanent as part of that team. Somebody who we can hire to share their knowledge and train others in a role, or just do that role, right? Enact that particular expert role in the team. Team size. So another thing for good teams is the size of team, right? Large teams, contrary to some belief, right, where you have more people, you can get more done. That's not actually very, very true. So let's read what team size is. When a team hires anyone to monitor, update docs, progress reports, or any role which is not directly related to the building and deploying the product, your team is now too large. Right? So as soon as you have people who are doing the work on monitoring others who do the work, as soon as you've got somebody summarizing or aggregating or doing something like that, monitoring of that, you know you have too many people. You need to let that person go. Real, solid, productive teams have core experts that do the job. right? That is what makes them a good team. And it's a very bad sign to have those kinds of roles within a team. And I've also got here, and this is just based on my experience, that between 8 and 12, this is really a sweet spot. It's completely contextual. Your environment could do with 7 and then it just falls apart. It could be 13. Like, there's just not enough evidence that I've seen in teams that I've watched and teams that I've made and been part of where more than that becomes anything better than the smaller version. There is nothing but chaos that results. It just becomes a really bad experience thereafter. There's too many people and people start doing things that are not really required towards the goal of the product. So have a look at it. I mean, the number is kind of irrelevant. I've just given a sort of a guide there, but you need to watch out for the types of roles that are being fulfilled. Right? So every good team, depending on the kind of product you're doing, let's just take an average web application kind of product. Every team is going to have a UI, some kind of architect, some kind of user experience in marketing, or some kind of in the trenches business rules, some kind of, and you're going to have those kind of things. And you need to take your application, divide it up into these segments, know your experts, know what kind of expert roles you require, and work towards fulfilling that with the best that you can. Teamwork. Well, teamwork is a combination of helping each other when required and moving towards a shared goal. Nothing in teamwork suggests async or synchronous communication. It does, however, include communication and synchronous thought towards a goal. We must have a common goal, right? I mean, teamwork doesn't mean that we all have to be in the same room, right? It just doesn't mean that. Teamwork is an alignment of vision, an alignment of passion and moving together towards a goal. There is no distinction there for me anyhow that needs to be co-located. People need to be within the same environment. There are, however, scenarios, emergencies, some kind of integration, some kind of issue, some kind of meta level where synchronous works best, communicating with a customer, bringing them into. There are some things that work best in synchronous, but I feel that the default of async is fine for most things and shouldn't be neglected because we're trying to build teamwork. They're not the same thing. Team building. So building a team is done in 2 ways: selecting people and then everything else, right? It's not enough to just select people and put them in a team and say, right, okay, communicate, go, right? It's what about personality types? What about work ethic? What about the types of experts within that role? What if there are 3 designers and no UI people? What if there are 4 UI people and 1 back-end person, right? This is the kind of thing that you have to develop and understand. So building a team is done in 2 steps: selecting people and then everything else. Building a team is finding the right experts, establishing trust, very important, and an alignment of commitment and passion. A team is only a team when their satisfaction with each other and their work increases. Team hero. Every team has a hero. Ensure it's a different hero each time. When a different hero steps in, you can be sure your team is becoming more effective. So if you look at like a football team, right, you don't always get the same goal scorer, right? So he's scoring, then he's scoring, then that scores, then he scores, and so on. And everyone's contributing. You might find a team has slightly more, right? Somebody in the team is slightly more, but I mean, they could just be a natural leader of some kind, but they're all rallying together. So a team hero is not something to fight against, right? You should have a hero in a team. Like, you really should. All the best teams do. Sometimes it's not a good thing to have one. As you'll see going further down now, one is actually an anti-pattern. We'll look into that now. Filling gaps. A good team will be able to fill short-term gaps. They will be able to rally and pull things off despite a deficiency in an expert. Be careful of the team gap anti-pattern. Okay, so filling a gap. So filling any sort of gap, a knowledge gap, a resource gap, filling an expert gap. A good team can rally together and say, look, we don't know anything about that, but come on guys, we can pull this together, we can do it, and you'll find that they'll manage, right? They'll get through things. But that's not really a good place to be. What you need to do is fill the gap. You need to identify the gap and fill it before it's too late. Managing coordinator. Sometimes it is useful to have a coordinator of experts or someone to lead communication. That does not mean that they're a manager. It does not mean that they're a team lead. I personally don't like titles like that. I like a team which are all experts, but somebody is nominated at different rotation times to go and communicate with some other external factors, right? So it's your turn, off you go, you know what's going on, off you go and communicate that on our behalf. You can, be the meeting coordinator for a few months. Then I'm going to give it to Bjorn, right? That's how it's going to work, right? Because to me, we should all be experts at what we do. We should all be facilitators. We should be all adept at communication, and therefore we should all do this. I prefer a more peer-to-peer relationship to leader, manager, and so on.